minors as they're growing up.
And it was also brought to my attention that this could possibly assist the police in doing their job, because this would give them another reason, if they had suspicion in anything, to see someone, and that could help assist them. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. I think at this point, we take your idea and we see if there's interest to pursuing the idea further, is to have it publicized on a future agenda. And then we would love to have your complete and whole argument, because it sounds like you've already put a lot of thought and research into this, and that would be the time to really give us the information that you've discovered. So we will talk about this at our agenda setting meeting, and Mr. Clerk will follow up with you. Is that information on the sign-up sheet?
It is not, but I will check in before they leave.
Okay, awesome.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Coming.
And I believe those are the two that signed up under item number 6. So,
Madam
Mr. Borton.
Sorry to interrupt. I talked briefly to these students. I appreciate you coming down here, and however, I don't know if it was Councilman Cavanagh or where this started, but this future meeting topic concept of a little open forum, this is exactly what it's trying to capture. In particular, when our youth come up with an idea that is of interest to you, and now you've got a little more homework to do to bring it back. However this got started, I appreciate you utilizing this process to open our eyes to your new idea, so thank you.
Well, and I would say we love to hear from our teen members of our community, and usually your ideas come without the baggage that a lot of our adult ideas come with. So we appreciate you joining us this evening, and we will follow up with you. Thank you. Okay, item 7 is a proclamation for a Better Hearing Month, and I will move to the podium. I believe that someone is here to accept this proclamation. Is Susan Elcox here? Susan, if you'll join me at the podium.
Thank you. I'll turn this around.
Because if you have.
Okay, I'll read the proclamation, and then I'll see if Susan has some comments she would like to share afterwards. Whereas hearing healthcare professionals in the city of Meridian, Idaho, observe and celebrate Better Hearing Month each year during the month of May. And whereas the city of Meridian, Idaho recognizes and values the efforts of all who work to eliminate or minimize the isolating effects of communication disorders in 1 in 5 families affected by them. And whereas the hearing loss is the 3rd most common health problem in the United States, and more than half of the people with hearing loss are younger than age 65. And whereas our citizens who have overcome communication disabilities through the services of hearing care professionals are now able to lead independent, productive, and fulfilling lives. And whereas the city of Meridian is proud and honored to have hearing care professionals offering quality education and health care services to its citizens to help them hear well, live well. Therefore, I, Mayor Tammy DeVeert, hereby proclaim May 2019 as Better Hearing Month in the city of Meridian, and encourage all our citizens to recognize the achievements of hearing care professionals in improving the quality of life for people with communication disorders. And I'm sure that all of us know someone that has had a hearing loss. I know my dad did. And before he died, he was almost distanced from the conversations and such that went on around him because he couldn't hear with the background noise. And it does isolate citizens and the people that we care the most about. So thank you for being here, Susan, and allowing me to read the proclamation honoring your organization and the Better Hearing Month.
Thank you.
So here you go.
Thank you. I just wanted to state that the reason that we do these proclamations every year is because, as Mayor DeVere mentioned, many people suffer with hearing loss. As it's stated in the proclamation, 50% are under the age of 65, so we have a lot of young citizens that have hearing loss as well. The important thing for everyone to understand about hearing loss is that there has been a study that was conducted about 10 years or so ago that showed that there was a correlation between your health and other health consequences, between hearing loss and other health consequences, specifically dementia. I like to make sure that all of our citizens are aware that untreated hearing loss does lead you at greater risk of developing dementia, 2 to 5 times greater at risk. 2 times being with a mild loss, which is a person who doesn't know, may not even be aware that they have a hearing loss and haven't accepted the fact that they have hearing loss. 5 times is if they have a severe loss. So it goes up the scale as your hearing loss gets worse. There are many benefits to treating your hearing loss. I'd like to just mention a few. One is better relationships with friends and family because you can carry on conversations to their fullest. You have more fun going out and doing things, more enjoyment just watching TV, so simple things. Better health because your brain gets exercised again, and better memory and cognition. So for those in the audience who may have seen the ads on TV about taking a pill, a supplement to improve your memory, the studies are showing that simply treating hearing loss performs much better than these nutraceuticals you can take. Thanks.
Okay, item number 8 is our consent agenda.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Borton.
there were no changes to the consent agenda as published, so I move that we approve the consent agenda for the mayor to sign and clerk to attest. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mylum?
Aye.
Councilmember Burnt? Councilmember Little Roberts?
Aye.
Councilmember Cavanagh? Councilmember Borton?
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried. There were no items moved from the consent agenda, so we'll move to item 10A, which is a presentation from Ada County Highway District about the beloved program, chip seal. Woohoo! Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For the record, Tim Nicholson, Ada County Highway District Deputy Director. Our address is 3775 Adams Street in Garden City. And it's a pleasure to be in front of you again, once a year at least, unless we have a whole bunch of snow, which we haven't had for a couple of years, which we're all thankful for.
Yes, we are.
Yes. So we'll talk to you about the 2019 chip seal season that ACHD is about ready to embark on. I'd like to start with a brief video, if I could. So I think it's on the computer itself. Thank you. Well, maybe we won't do the video, but it was really cool.
We'll have to believe you on
Yeah,
that one.
well, it shows kind of the old way of doing things and now the newer way of doing things. So, trust me, it was really good, and there was good songs with it and everything. So,
Well, I think that's the best argument you can have, Tim, is bring one, hope it doesn't work, and then say what it
Yeah,
should say.
Justin will vouch for me. It was spectacular. He got to see it today. So we'll just go back over here to this. So why do we chip seal? The reason that we chip seal, I think, is evident in this shark fin curve that you can see in front of you. As you can see, over time, over roughly 13 to 14 years, the life cycle of asphalt pavement goes down dramatically after about year 10. So ACHD's preventative maintenance concept is to do the chip seal roughly every 6 years on the arterial and collector roadways. And by doing this, you can see that the cost of our chip seal operation is about 22 cents per square foot, when compared to a mill and overlay, about 7 times more expensive, and reconstruction, which is about 33, 34 times more expensive. So there's a huge benefit to the taxpayers and the citizens to keep the roads in a very good condition using the chip seal process. And it can ultimately extend the life of the pavement significantly when compared to doing nothing, or even a mill and overlay where you can see you have that huge investment and it really doesn't extend the life of your pavement terribly much longer. The other reasons why we chip seal are asphalt oxidizes and becomes brittle and ultimately develops cracks. So in doing the chip seal process, it provides a new wearing surface for the public that increases the friction between the road surface and the tires, keeping drivers safer during inclement weather, as well as helps waterproof and seal up those cracks in the road, preventing further degradation of the base and ultimately the entire road. This is a map of our 6 chip seal zones. The 7th zone you see is in downtown Boise, where we don't do chip sealing. We do other preventative maintenance treatments for those roads specifically. But as you're well aware, we are going to be working in Zone 2 this year. And due to the fact that we had an extravagant amount of lane miles to cover, we're splitting Zone 2 up into 2 years. You're more than aware of the amount of growth that's happening in your city here. And Zone 2 has grown tremendously since we've been in this area the last time. So there was too many lane miles for our crews to adequately complete this year, so we're going to split Zone 2 up between 2019 and 2020. We'll get into that here a little bit further with a more detailed map. The current goal, like I said, is to do every arterial and every collector roadway in the zone every 6 years, along with half the residentials. So the residentials are getting completed every 12 years on average. As far as dollars and metrics go, we're looking at spending about $7 million. This is ACHD's largest maintenance activity that we do on a yearly basis. It involves about 25,000 team hours over 45 days. We're planning to do about 424 lane miles this year, which is about an average year for us. The target for us is about 450 miles a year. So that involves, again, 6,800 tons of liquid asphalt and roughly 47,000 tons of chips. This is an overview of our chip sealing train or process. As you can see out in front, we have a lead vehicle and we have traffic moved around. You can see on the right side of the picture that the farmost right lane has already been chip sealed and it's open to traffic. Leading up to this, we had already swept the road. You can see the distributor truck in the front of the train spraying down the hot oil, followed by the chip spreader, usually a train of dump trucks, anywhere between 10 to 15 dump trucks, followed up by 3 rollers or 4 rollers, depending on how many we need for that particular roadway. And that's, it's a fast-moving, very dynamic process. And if you've ever gotten a chance to go out and see it, which I would encourage any of you, if you'd like to come out and be a part and either ride on the chipper or ride in the distributor truck, you're more than welcome to do that. Just give me a call and we'd be happy to arrange that. We'll be right in front of City Hall at some point, so it'll be close to home. But it's an orchestrated dance, essentially, is what it is, to move the traffic along, to keep the train moving, and to keep the production up. This is a picture of the fog seal operation. So after we place the chips, the roads, again, is immediately opened up to traffic. We'll come back through a couple days later, sweep the bulk chips out of there, do a final sweep another 2 or 3 days later, and then do the fog seal. And what this allows is it allows our traffic team blank canvas to do new line painting and markings on the street. And also, if they want to change any of the lane configurations or add a bike lane, it gives us that opportunity to be able to do that as well. So this process is not just we wind this thing up in May and start in late May and early June. It's a very involved process that starts back in December and January with our maintainers going over all the equipment, inspecting things, repairing our equipment, making sure it's all ready to go. And then there's a lot of other outreach that goes along with it. And as you can see, we've spoken with the Ada County Sheriff's Office dispatch team. We've already mailed out postcards to everybody in the affected chip seal area. We had a presentation with the Meridian and Boise Police Departments, shared it with our commission about a week ago, and here with you all tonight to share it with the Meridian City Council. After that, the show begins on the 28th, the day after Memorial Day. We will do our refresher training with all of our crews, and it will be our soft start date, assuming that the weather cooperates with us. If it's cool like it's been these past couple days, then we're probably going to have to postpone that a little bit till we get some warmer temperatures. But we plan to start with what's called an auto seal, which is a little different than a chip seal, and it's used more on rural roads. As you can see, we'll be out on South Cole Road doing that. And then our other group, our Adams team, is going to be in the Eagle Island State Park doing a little joint venture with Idaho Parks and Recreation Department. We're going to chip seal the entrance road. What this allows us to do is to calibrate our equipment, make sure that everything's working properly, get the crews trained up in areas that aren't so full of traffic, and really get going the following week. We won't be chip sealing at all during the July 4th holiday week. This allows us time to go through our equipment and do some more maintenance and evaluate the process and see where things are going well, see what we need to tweak. Plus, it also keeps us out of the way for everybody's plans for travel over the holidays and their barbecues and everything else that's going on. So we plan to be done in late August and have a chip seal victory party with our team members the middle of September. Again, communication is a big part of this operation. Like I said, we've sent postcards out to everybody. We will be posting daily updates on our webpage. We will update the Ada County Sheriff's Office, and Rita is our internal program that's road work in the area that's also on our website. We have an interactive public-facing map on our website that will show what we've completed, what's in progress, and where we're kind of headed next. You can kind of follow along through that. And of course, our communications folks will be posting a lot on our various social media outlets. Again, this is a map of the area that we're going to be doing. The green area on the left-hand side of the map is our Cloverdale crew. The pink area, red area on the right side of the map is Adams' operation. So, and we're pretty heavy on the residential side this year. We're doing all the residential roads in this area this year. So with that, I'd stand for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Tim. Council, any questions? That was a very thorough presentation. We appreciate that. And it is a long, onerous program. Do you coordinate with our public safety team on what sections, how you start rolling it out?
I don't know if we specifically spoke with them. I'd be happy to do that, though. The plan is to start in the northwest quadrants of both maps and then kind of work easterly and then southerly from there and end up in kind of the southeast corner of both of those maps.
I think it is helpful, and you have a contact over with Lieutenant Stokes.
Be happy to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, item 11 is under our action items, and tonight we will first start with 11A, which is a presentation from our Meridian Dairy and Stock Show. We just call it the Meridian Dairy Show Board. Thank you for joining us. And this is about the upcoming Dairy Days parade and activities. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Jerry Madison, 1892 West Hendricks Court, Meridian. I'm Secretary Treasurer of the Meridian Dairy and Stock Shows.
Hans Bruin, President, Meridian Dairy Board. And I guess that's all that came up with us. First of all, Madam Mayor, we want to thank you for your support all these years. It's going to be strange when we come back next year and somebody else be sitting in your seat.
It will be strange, not weird, right? Sorry.
Depends who gets elected.
We won't go there. This year, the big change is that after many years of suggestions from Council, Meridian Police, ACHD, we have moved the parade from Friday to Saturday. It will be Saturday, June 22nd at 6 p.m. The reason for the evening parade is Saturday morning and early afternoon is when we have our dairy cattle and dairy goat show, which is one of our main reasons why we put on Meridian Dairy Days. So we have to make sure that's all done before we can start a parade. And I think everybody is very excited about seeing the parade moving to Saturday. However, it does change a little bit of the cost since we've gone from basically a work day to a weekend. As you're well aware, Specialty Construction will do all our traffic control, and their quote has gone up quite a bit because of a Saturday parade. This year the quote was about $5,900. In addition, we've also taken the advice from Meridian Police in crowd control and trying to have caution tape along the entire route of the parade along Main Street for safety reasons, which also, adds to the cost. Let's see, did you have anything?
That is not included in the, I believe you guys have a copy of the bid from Specialty? Yeah.
Correct,
Yes.
yes.
And that, the caution tape is not included in there. Right.
So basically what we do is, like we've done in the past, is request support of the City of Meridian to cover the cost of specialty construction. Are there any questions?
Council, any questions? So Hans, I'm excited that it's moved to Saturday. And I think your commuting public are really appreciative that you moved it to Saturday. Because of course, the timing of the parade was always when everyone was trying to go home from work.
Right.
And that was kind of a recipe for a lot of frustrated drivers. So this is good news. So you're asking for the $5,898.75 in addition.
I don't know how much the specialty charges for that tape, and I don't know how many feet we need of it. But I understand it's relatively expensive through specialty. I don't know how to put that
And-
politely.
And in addition, there may be a few more man-hours on the, for the flaggers. They will try to stay a little later so we can get our cleanup crew to follow the parade, to make sure that we leave the streets in better shape than when we started.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Burns?
just a question for the Police Department, Officer Stokes. A reason why the additional cost for the tape this year as opposed to past years?
I may not be the best expert on this, but typically with parades, it's the challenge of keeping the pedestrians that are on the sidewalk, to keep them on the sidewalk and not in the parade route. And I don't think we have candy thrown and that kind of thing as much as we used to. I do think it's a reasonable safety measure. As far as caution tape goes, I don't know the exact cost, but like our police line tape that everybody's familiar with, it's relatively inexpensive. And I don't know if we're talking about the same thing, like a plastic line, but that should not be a significant cost. Should be a couple of $100, I would guess.
Madam Mayor,
That helps.
Mr. Kavner?
quick look on the old Google machine shows $3.79 for a 1,000-foot roll.
I've looked it up on Amazon, and it's not cheap, but I understand that specialty marks it up a little bit.
Well,
Or quite a
maybe
bit.
we need to order through Amazon.
We did try to sell, find a sponsor, maybe put our name on the caution tape. However, the expense of that is way past anybody's budget.
Madam Mayor,
And Mr. Borton?
maybe I didn't track it correctly. Is the caution tape a request that we've put upon you, or you're asking us to do, or?
We've put upon them, and they're asking us to cover it.
We're asking you to pay for it, yeah. It was, last couple of years, we haven't had any of that tape up and down the road, and there's been quite an issue with people coming out. And I know McCall, when they do their Winter Carnival Parade, they use that caution tape, and they said it worked great. And I just think it's worth a try. The safety is more important than the cost, I think.
In particular, where it starts to split, and that's always been kind of a conflict where that tape is essential, for sure. I'm not sure it's going to keep the kids out of the street, because not all candy makes it to the curb.
No, yeah. And I was jokingly saying I feel bad if a piece of caution tape works better than me standing there trying to keep kids back, but I hope it does.
We'll see. We'll look forward to the report next year.
Yeah.
Council, any other questions?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Kavner?
I assume there's an action that we need to take on this. I know we don't necessarily have a budget amendment, but I'm comfortable with doing what we did, I think, last year, which was to approve a not to exceed amount based on the estimate that we have here, and sounds like some additional unanticipated costs.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Neri?
Madam Mayor, I did check with Finance before today's meeting to see if they already have budgeted some funds towards this expense, and they have budgeted $4,900 based on last year's amount. So that's already in your budget. So anything above that would then need a budget amendment. But there is at least $4,900 that was already planned in our budget. And then I did check with the departments, and I didn't get a response from police, but I did from parks. And there is some that's already programmed in their budget, is the reservation fees for Story Park that we have traditionally waived. That's $964.60, and that's already planned. There is overtime hours that are already programmed into their budget as well. They plan 93 total hours of overtime for that. So that's already been planned for in the expense. So it really is the 4,900 and then addition to that.
And so those costs are detailed in the memo that Emily provided. And the only, it sounds like the only thing that has changed is the bid that we received and the addition of the caution tape.
So, Madam Mayor,
Mr. Kavner.
I will move that we approve the Meridian Dairy and Stock Show request for cost share for a not-to-exceed amount of $6,000. And then, I guess, Madam Mayor, question for legal is to just bring a budget amendment to us next week for the $1,100.
You can do that.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to authorize up to, you said $6,000?
Correct, yes, ma'am.
Any discussion? Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mylum?
Aye.
Councilmember Burnt?
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts?
Aye.
Councilmember Cavanagh?
Aye.
Councilmember Borton?
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried. So we'll just look for your after-event report, and we'll see how the numbers fall.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your help.
Thank you for joining
Thank
us.
you guys.
We're excited for Saturday morning, too. Appreciate that. Yeah, Saturday morning now.
Okay, item 11B is a final plat for H 2019-0053. This applicant has requested a continuance to May 28th. Council, any concerns, or do you need any background information on that? If not, I would entertain a motion to continue item 11B.
Madam Mayor,
Ms. Mylum.
move that we continue item 11B, H 2019-0053 to May 28th.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to continue 11B to May 28th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All ayes. 11C is a public hearing for H 2019-0052. I will open this public hearing. And for those that are new to this process, we have staff give an overview of the application, and then the applicant will come forward, discuss the project details. They have 10 minutes to do this, and this is timed. It's timed. The timer is on the podium on the screen, so you can track the amount of time where you're at. After the applicant presents the project, we will take public testimony. Public testimony is a 3-minute time frame for each of those that have signed up to provide testimony. Then the applicant has an opportunity to stand for final comments, to answer any questions raised during the testimony, and to provide any additional information to council. At that point, council will ask questions of staff, applicant, or those that provided testimony, and then close the public hearing. So with that, I will turn this over to staff for their comments on item 11C.
Madam Mayor, council members, thank you. The item before you is the Orchard Creek Pump House variance application. The site consists of a common lot on 2.28 acres of land, zoned R8, located just north of East Lake Hazel Road and east of South Eagle Road. In 2014, this property was annexed and preliminary platted as Hill Century Farm. In 2018, this section was final platted as Bicentennial Farms Number 1, with 47 single-family homes and 11 common lots on 19.29 acres of land. It is currently being marketed under the name Orchard Creek Subdivision. So the applicant is requesting a variance to deviate from the dimensional standards of the R8 district to allow for the construction of a 350 square foot structure within the required setbacks and street landscape buffer. The proposed structure will serve three purposes, primarily a pump house for the subdivision irrigation equipment. It'll also be a covered structure for a dog park entrance, and it'll also be a subdivision entryway feature. The previous owner of the property installed the well and irrigation equipment at this location without the approval of the city. So the approved construction documents for Bicentennial Farms number 1 do show this facility farther to the north. In any case, in order for Idaho Power to supply power to the irrigation pumps, they do require them to be enclosed in a permanent structure. So this proposed building is encroaching approximately 8 feet into the 35-foot landscape buffer here along Lake Hazel Road, which is designated as an entryway corridor. As you can see in this exhibit, the site is constrained by a number of features, including multiple easements. You have ACH easements to the north and west, City of Meridian water easement to the north as well. You have the 10 Mile Creek on the west, and then Lake Hazel Road to the south, and South Arable Lane to the to the east. So staff does believe that there is sufficient space to place this structure in a location outside these areas. For example, you could just shift it slightly to the northwest. However, it is staff's understanding that this is not feasible at this time, as the irrigation facility is currently providing water to the development. In addition, the applicant would have to further subdivide the property to place the irrigation facility on a separate dedicated lot as required by code. So staff is supportive of the multi-use nature of the facility and finds that as a whole it would be a benefit to the residents of this subdivision. In addition, the appearance of the building emulates other design features found in the subdivision and is more visually attractive and interesting than the majority of pump houses built. But based on the required findings in the staff report, staff does recommend denial of the variance request. Staff will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Thank you, Kevin. See applicant here.
Yes.
Good evening. If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Brian Garrett, 210 North 6th Street, Boise, Idaho.
Thank you.
So as staff mentioned, there's a couple of small corrections. The pump was actually placed by the development prior to the final plat being approved. It was not necessarily the previous owner. However, it was prior to roads and much other infrastructure going in. And there were some clarifications made as well over, that Kevin made. But yeah, we are proposing to take what is a necessary utility, an existing pump, an existing pump pad, and beautify it and make it into an amenity for the community or the development. The the pump station, it was placed prior to completion of the final plat. It's regrettable that the placement is in the setback. However, it is not in the vision triangle. There's no public safety or welfare concerns. Moving the pump would be at great expense, and we don't believe that moving it, sliding the pump over would necessarily be beneficial to the community or public or safety or anything else like that. It would just be a marginal push of something that was unfortunately placed where it is. Staff has been and has mentioned that they're in support of the overall idea of utilizing this existing structure as an amenity for the community, and we would ask that council approve the variance and allow us to create this amenity for Orchard Creek.
Thank you, Brian. Council, any questions? Okay, thank you. Mr. Clerk, are there any signups?
Madam Mayor, there were no sign-ins for this project.
Okay. So council, any additional information needed from staff or our applicant's representative?
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Borton.
Doesn't sound like there is any, so I will move that we close the public hearing on item 11C, H 2019-0052.
I have a motion and a second, but I would like to ask the applicant if there were any final comments he wanted to make.
Motion withdrawn.
Thank you.
Century Farms has an amenity that is also about a quarter mile up Eagle Road from this development. It's within it. We haven't taken a tape measure to it, but it's much closer to the public road than this is. There is existing pump houses in other developments that are also very close to the road. We do not feel that this is out of line with those locations, even though it wasn't necessarily set intentionally to violate the setback.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. If there are no further questions, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Borton.
Move that we close the public hearing on item 11C.
Second.
A motion and a second to close the public hearing on item 11C. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All ayes.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Borton.
Kevin, welcome. I think the analysis is spot on, but I think it highlights something that we've struggled with a little bit more recently with our variance and 3 prongs versus 2. I'm supportive of the request, the variance request. I think the findings with regards to the undue hardship on the characteristics of this site, with regards to the relocation of the structure elsewhere on the property wouldn't be feasible. The irrigation facility is currently supplying water to the development. There's not additional land area to place the irrigation facility. You cite specific undue hardships on this site that by granting the variance doesn't necessarily provide a special privilege. I think it's those unique characteristics that warrant granting it. And you're finding, which I agree with as well, that it doesn't, approving it wouldn't be detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare. It makes it appropriate in this context, under these facts, to grant this specific variance. I know we're working on the 3 prongs of our variance and trying to clarify that for applicants going forward, that there is really effectively 2 prongs to what we have to provide to grant a variance, and we haven't yet done that. So I still think the intent of that is supported by the facts. So I'm supportive of the variance request.
Thank you, Mr. Borton. Any other comments? Do I have a motion?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Borton.
based upon that reasoning, I move that we approve the variance request in H 2019-0052.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the variance for H 2019-0052. Are There are no discussions. Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mylum?
Aye.
Councilmember Burnt?
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts?
Aye.
Councilmember Cavanagh?
Aye.
Councilmember Borton?
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried. Item 11D is a public hearing for H 2019-0021. And we'll open this public hearing with staff comments.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Burns.
before we continue, I'm in the flooring business, and I do a little bit of business with the applicant along with another builder who follows them in their builder team that build in different subdivisions. And so I directly could potentially benefit from this application if it is approved, and so therefore I would need to recuse myself from this conversation.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Burnt.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Cavanagh.
If, I apologize for everyone here. Can we just take a quick 5-minute break before we jump into this? I want to make sure that we've got plenty of time. It's been brought to my attention, maybe we may have a time concern for another council member tonight, and I want to make sure that we're all on the same page in light of that recusal from Mr. Burnt. If we could have maybe a 5-minute recess to make sure that we're going to be fine to hear this thing in its entirety tonight before we begin. I think it's important for the people that are here that if there's going to be a change or that a council member may have to leave and that would prevent quorum, that we be pretty direct with that.
Okay.
We can take a 5-minute
We
recess.
will reconvene at
Great.
5 after 7. Okay. Are we on? Okay. I will go ahead and call this meeting back to order. Thank you. We do have a council member that has to leave at 8, and so we do have a hard stop at 8 o'clock. So I will go ahead and ask for staff comments at this time.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. The applications before you are a request for annexation and zoning and a preliminary plat. This site consists of 71.3 acres of land. It's zoned RUT in Ada County and is located on the north side of West Chinden Boulevard and State Highway 2026, west of Black Cat Road. Comprehensive plan future land use designation on this property. There's 3 different designations. Medium density residential. If you look at the map on your left there, which is the yellow area, is 3 to 8 units per acre. Mixed use interchange, which is the lower left area, the hatched area, and mixed use community, which is the brown area. The applicant is requesting annexation and zoning of 77.33 acres of land with R8 zoning, which is 21.95 acres, and CG zoning, which is 55.38 acres, consistent with the associated future land use map designations. A conceptual site plan was submitted as shown. The proposed development will be anchored by a medical campus consisting of a medical office building, which will eventually include a surgical center, emergency department, and a hospital. There are 4 professional office buildings proposed, and that is down here in the southeast corner. 2 flex space buildings, and those are kind of central to the development on the east end, one of which is anticipated to house a police substation. Retail with a convenience store, multi-tenant retail office, a health club, and conventional single-family residential homes, single-family residential independent living homes, and an assisted living facility along the north boundary. A preliminary plat is proposed, consisting of 75 building lots, 7 common lots, and 4 other lots consisting of 2 private streets, 1 common driveway, and 1 future right-of-way lot on 71.3 acres of land. The plat is proposed to develop in 3 phases, as shown on the phasing plan in the lower right. 1 full access is proposed via Levi Lane. I'll just flip back to that concept plan here. Levi is a collector street from State Highway 2026. A traffic signal with an emergency vehicle preemption will be required at the Levi State Highway 2026 intersection. An east-west collector street, Waverton Drive, will provide access from the east via Black Cat Road through Fairborn subdivision and will intersect with Levi Lane in accord with the master street map, and extend to the west to Pollard Lane, providing access to the Franklin Sensors property and the rural residential properties to the north on the rim, and will serve as a backage road, providing access to the properties fronting the state highway. This street will replace the east-west street that lies approximately 530 feet to the south of the proposed location that currently aligns with the driveway to the Franklin Sensors building. This neighbor is against the proposed relocation of the street to the north, although ACHD has approved the proposed location contingent upon vacation and exchange of existing right-of-way. 2 stub streets are proposed to the north boundary for access to the rural residential properties from Old School Lane. Pollard Lane, abutting the west boundary of the site, north of the existing driveway to the Franklin Sensors property, is required to be improved as half of a 40-foot street section with curb gutter and sidewalk. A 35-foot wide street buffer is required along State Highway 2026 with a 10-foot wide multi-use pathway. A 25-foot wide landscape buffer to adjoining residential uses is required along the east boundary of the commercial portion of the site. Qualified open space and site amenities are proposed within the residential portion of the development in accord with UDC standards. A pedestrian circulation plan was submitted as shown that provides for pedestrian interconnectivity within the site and to the main building entrances in the commercial development. Public plaza areas are also depicted on the plan as required in mixed-use designated areas. Staff recommends more central, connected plaza and outdoor gathering areas are planned adjacent to buildings with development of each commercial area. Those depicted on the site plan do not qualify toward the minimum requirements. Conceptual Building elevations were submitted for the hospital, as shown. And the medical office buildings, Flex Tech buildings, and the assisted living facility, and single-family residential attached and detached homes. The commission did recommend approval of this project to the council tonight. Madam Mayor, would you like me to go through the summary from the commission hearing? It's rather lengthy. I'm not sure if you want to spend the time tonight or not. It is contained in the staff report that you should all have had for your review.
I think council's good. If they have follow-up questions, they can.
Thank you. And then I'll just add, written testimony has been received from Keith McGregor and David Durow from Franklin Sensors since the commission hearing. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Sonia. Any questions from council at this point?
Madam Mayor, one quick one.
Okay.
Sonia, in the staff report, there's reference to the 2 rows stubbing to the north, concerned that they were intended to be private streets, wanting them to be public. Is that
correct.
Is that still an issue, or is that resolved?
The city is requiring them to be public streets, as is ACHD, so no issue. The applicants agreed to that.
That's it.
I guess it depends on who you ask. Okay, is the applicant here this evening? Good evening. If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. John Wardle with Brighton, 2929 West Navigator Road, Meridian, 83642.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time tonight. I will be brief, given the time constraints we have tonight. Just want to note that the ACHD Commission did approve this project on April 10th, and there was unanimous commission approval sent to you for recommendation for approval on April 18th. Seems like your system just shut down.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Borton.
Just to be clear, for the applicant and the public, the concept of a hard stop for 8 o'clock, which happens every now and then, doesn't mean that there has to be a decision by 8 o'clock. There may or may not be, depending what questions come up and what testimony there is, but if it necessitates continuing it, that's what would occur. It's not no one should feel forced to shorten any comments or presentation.
Will you just open that back up again, Sonia? Or maybe let's try that right there. Well, let me just talk a little bit about the project while we're waiting for that to come back up. When we started looking at the project, Pollard subdivision, Central Valley, we looked at the overall plans that the city had. There was a strong desire for a backage road system north of Chinden and not putting all those trips that may be able to go a different direction. So when we started looking at the project, we looked at the way that it fit in the context of the overall plan that the city had for the North Meridian area. And this gives you a demonstration of what that idea was, that there would be connections north of Chinden Boulevard. In this case, with the construction of Waverton, we'll be connecting to Levi, which would be a signalized intersection, to Black Cat, which also would be a signalized intersection, and over to Tree Farm. And this provides east-west mobility without connecting or without having to get onto Chinden Boulevard, which was a strong desire that the city had. We have worked a lot with the neighbors to the north. We didn't initiate this planning process haphazardly, but we had been talking with them for some time and how we would develop the buffers between us, them to the north, and how those connections would be. To answer the question regarding private versus public roads, we are proposing public roads connecting to the north. those property owners may not be ready to develop at this time. And so like most public roads, there'll be signs up that say in the future this road will be extended, and that will be at their choice at when that connection would happen. But until that happens, Old School Road, which services those homes, will continue to exist and will be their access and can be until they make a decision on that. There were some issues or questions that were raised that we addressed at Planning and Zoning Commission regarding quasi-public open spaces. We do agree with staff that they do need to be more centrally located between buildings, and when we come through the CZCDR process for those buildings, there are a number of locations different than what we proposed that could be those plaza areas to satisfy that question, and we're ready to do that, the CZCDR process. One of the other issues was the setback or buffering from future Fairborn. We have worked with that property owner. We've also worked with the staff. Originally, we had proposed a setback of 90 feet with a 3-story building. In consultation with that property owner and with staff, we've rotated that building. It's moved 100 to 160 feet, so 70 feet more. We do have a 25-foot landscape buffer on our side, and it's our understanding that the Fairborn Estates subdivision will also have a 23-foot landscape buffer on their side, and so there's a very sizable landscape area between those two projects. We will be providing a future lift station, sewer lift station, which is part of the city's plans at this location, which allows this area to develop per the city's plans and provide services not only to the future development to the north when that occurs, but also to the rest of Franklin Sensors to the west. And there is an out parcel which eventually will lose all of its access with the widening of 2026, and we will accommodate the future cross access for that as well. And there was another item that at the City Planning and Zoning Commission about buffering of the flex office space adjacent to that roadway. We will also pick that detail up in the CZCDR approval. However, we have increased the room for additional buffering, could create a berm plus a fence so that any doors would be sufficiently screened from that public roadway. One of the items that was raised at the ACHD meeting and also at the P&Z was access to the property owner to the west. We have had a variety of conversations. When I say we, BVA, who will be developing the hospital site here, has been discussing that access with Franklin Sensors, along with and allowing for by license agreement access through that site eventually. Tom Peterson of BVA has met with them, has discussed that with them, and we continue to state that we will work with them to provide that access through license agreement. So there'll be some discussion about that, but I just wanted to put that out there that we are committed to doing that, and BVA will continue that process as they bring their plans forward for that hospital and the development of that project. One of the other items for your consideration this evening is in the city code, there is a requirement that a hospital take direct access to an arterial. Their arterials are specifically planned through the city, through Compass, through ACHD. Levi Lane, although it is a collector road, it is being built as a 5-lane road connecting directly to the only point of access that will be allowed on 2026. So functionally, Levi Lane will act as an arterial, although it's designated as a collector, and this gets to a signalized access, which will have the preemptive control on it as well. We have spent a lot of time planning this project. This is it takes into consideration a lot of things. First was the transportation planning, the connecting east to west of that desired backage road system. We're also extending sewer and water and other public utilities to an area that currently doesn't have them and installing a future lift station for the sewer. The project in and of itself is unique because we have a variety of mixed uses, which is the designation for this area, that comply within the context of the comp plan. Hospital, office, flex office, residential, even public services such as the police substation, and connecting the pedestrian connections east-west on a corridor, which is also very important. So we've looked at all of these and have put together a plan for you that we feel does address the concept and the context of a mixed-use community at this location. Finally, as I will stand for any questions, we do request your approval for this project, in that we have looked at the context of the comprehensive plan. We are providing a mix of uses here, both for employment, needed services in an area that currently doesn't have these services, connectivity both for automobiles and pedestrians and bicyclists, and the extension of public services to an area which currently does not have those. We request your approval of Pollard subdivision, also known as Central Valley Plaza, and I stand for any questions you might have this evening.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Okay, thank you. Mr. Clerk, if you will read those names who have signed up to testify.
Yes, first you have Robin Hayes.
Thank you for joining us. If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Robin Hayes. We live at 7100 North Pollard Lane, Meridian, Idaho, 83646. We actually get into our property. We have 2 parcels off of Old School Lane that amount to 11 acres. And so we come around from Pollard onto Old School Lane and then access our piece of property to the north. I just wanted to make the comment that Brighton has been very good to work with. We've been working with them probably 6-7 years on the development of this approximately 80 acres there. It's changed its composition over the years and what it was going to be and what was going to happen, but they have been in constant contact with us. Every time we had a question or a suggestion or an idea or could you do this or how will we do that, they have responded and have, I think, addressed our needs very well. In general, we don't really like to see what's happening in Ada County and the city of Meridian, but it is what it is. But we do support this project. I don't know if you can see on the map where our property is. We're kind of right smack dab in the middle of it, so it really does impact us. But we've had full and easy access to them, writing letters, notes, calling, text messaging, emails, and they've been very good in responding to us immediately. I don't know how to let you know where.
It's you need to pull it back.
Upper right.
Yeah, pull it.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah. How do I show you on here? Oh,
You have control of the mouse there.
oh, okay, great. Okay. This is one parcel right here, and this is the other parcel right here. It's a total of 11 acres. We've been there for 35 years, raised 3 kids, a lot of horses, a lot of great dogs, and have really loved it. So we are supporting the project and look forward to continuing to work with Brighton on any of the questions. They're doing a privacy fence for us along here and a berm, and have really worked with us and are going to stub in utilities for us for the future.
Thank you, Robin. We appreciate you joining us. Council, any questions for Ms. Hayes? Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, next is Tamala Paxman.
I'm giving my minutes to
Jay Paxman.
So it sounds like there's a spokesperson, and we'll see who all is giving their minutes, and he'll have up to 10.
Owen Barnes. David Duro.
I would like to request that I'm David Duro. I'd like to request if I could use 3 extra minutes from Jay Paxman, who just yielded his minutes, if that's okay.
No, I'm sorry, you'll have 3 minutes.
3 minutes?
Yes.
I will talk really, really,
Oh, you are?
well, I can talk really, really fast. There's a lot of stuff that we,
You'll have 10 minutes then to provide your testimony.
okay.
That's not how it works. Everyone says, I'll give you mine.
Can you set up and stand next to me while we talk together?
No.
Can I talk while?
You'll have 10 minutes as the spokesperson.
Okay. This is gonna be really hard. Well, we'll do what we can, see what we can do. This is our kind of Meridian Research Park. This is our vision. Would be an upscale off. We're the subdivision just to the west of the project. We want to have upscale office buildings. Is our vision. We want, and that's kind of what we. This is our first building. You notice it's very, very big windows. We made it very nice. We made very big drive aisles. I can't do this. But this is when we got the property. This is the access that we had. This is how we understood. We understood we're a landlocked piece of land. We understood that this was the land. This was a piece of land that was an access road that was there. We understood this was land. We got a hold of the contract. We got a hold of the contract and understood exactly what's going to happen. And we went and got zoned for this piece of land. We got zoned accordingly. We lined up our building with it. We lined up our complex with this piece of land. Shortly after we got our zoning approved, Brian came back and said we want to change the location of the road. We were all lined up with the road. We had everything perfect so we could make an asset to the community. And we got a new road location. And we went back and went through zoning again a second time so we could be lined up. We got through that zoning, and then Brighton changed it a third time. And so we went back, we wanted to do it right, went back a third time so we could do it right. It's kind of frustrating because now we've built everything, the road's been built, it's all been understood that it's a deeded land, and now we have a fourth location, and this is where it is, where the green one is. You kind of see the history of what we've gone through. This is kind of what happens to our access. We thought we would have the red access, and now we have this kind of this jumbled access. We have to go up and around. It's not a nice access. It does depreciate the value of land. Everyone you talk to, access is everything. This happens around a lot of places in Meridian. There's a lot of places that have this sort of thing happen. This is one near walking distance from where I live. It's Pollard subdivision. You have an access road. Everyone believes it's a public road. Everyone understands public roads are there to stay. We understood that. If someone would come along and said, I want to put a hypothetical hospital right there in the middle of your road, you'd have people all the way out here complaining about that because they believe and understood it's a public road, and we understand public roads stay. And I would hope that happened. You guys say, well, let's try and figure out a way to not have to upset a public road that someone has built around and trusted. So I like to stand back and look at this project and say, okay, this project's kind of evolved. There's been lots of iterations since last September when it got published in the paper. If we were to take this site and starting from scratch, knowing that's a public road, these are the buildings you want to put in. You want to put the hospital cluster in there somewhere. You want to put this other building in there. The obvious way to do it is put the hospital on the other side. You don't have to upset anyone's road, and everyone would be happy. So I think it's worth considering that very, very seriously because and it would offer a lot of benefits. You could group the medical buildings together. You group the office buildings together. It would be a much better design of a city, a much better flow. You would have a right-hand turn into your hospital. If I'm having a stroke or heart attack, I definitely want that right-hand turn. It would be just a better way of doing it. Our conclusion is we count on this road. We're landlocked. We depended on this road, and we strongly appeal that there's a road that Biden picked. It's their location. They picked the road. They built it. We just designed around it. We're landlocked. Now we would strongly encourage you not to approve this application because I think it's a terrible precedent. I don't think it makes a great city. And Jacob, do you want to come up next? Yeah, I'm done with mine.
Madam Mayor, if I may, there were 4 additional signed up after Mr. Duro, and he was representing, I believe, Ms. Paxman, Mr. Paxman, and Mr. Barnes. So it is your decision how you want to proceed, but there were additional.
He, yeah. So- Please
There's only
do.
5 people who want to present, and if we have like 5-6 minutes each, we can say
Okay,
everything we
now,
need to say.
so you as a spokesperson had a total of 10 minutes. You have 6 minutes left.
We want Karen to be the spokesperson. She wants to go last.
I'm sorry, I can't have a conversation with someone in the audience. So, Mr. Duro, can you tell me, you don't need the full 10
Well,
minutes?
it works best if we can each take a few more than 3 minutes, instead of me taking all 10 minutes. If, he can use a few more than 3, can we divide the extra 6 minutes among a few more people?
Our process is that we give a spokesperson 10 minutes to speak
Okay.
for a group. Any other testimony that's accepted has a 3-minute limit.
Because I know in the planning and zoning, they let people, everyone got to borrow minutes. I used a few of your minutes. I mean, a lot of people, that was very common in the
We
planning.
do follow our process. It is the process that has been adopted for years, and that is the
Okay.
process that I offer you tonight.
Okay. Well, 3 more minutes, I take your presentation? Yeah, we do it fast. You want to go next, Jacob?
Okay, so Mr. Burrow, or Duro,
Yes.
you are done with your comments? Is that what I understand?
You want to come talk here? I don't. Go ahead, Jacob. Why don't you take the rest of my minutes, Jacob? Why don't you finish mine? Can you finish my 6 minutes? You can be the spokesperson? At least one person will get there. We'll have to rush through it all.
You can finish your 6 minutes, but we need to continue this, and you have 6 minutes remaining, and this will be the rest of your 6 minutes, is that I understand?
Can we just ask a question? We're a little new to this procedure. And Can we just ask a clarification? We're a little new to this process, and the other commissions we've been before had different processes. We were under the
Well,
impression.
they do have the same process, but I think you caught them unawares, and I think they gave you leeway that we can't set a precedence, and we need to maintain our record, and this is the process that we follow. I announced it at the beginning of the meeting that you each had 3 minutes. If you have a spokesperson, people yield their time to that spokesperson that allows 10 minutes, and that 10 minutes was offered. And so now we need to move this
Okay,
meeting
so
along.
we can't present, like I had 3 minutes. I can't do my 3 minutes because he started as a spokesman.
You can still do your 3 minutes, right?
You will have your 3 minutes.
Okay.
He yielded, we had the 3 people before Mr. Duro that yielded their time as the spokesperson. Okay, Mr. Clerk, who is next on the list?
I have Jacob Barnett.
Good evening, if you'll please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jacob Barrett. Address is 6675 North Pollard Lane, Meridian. So I have a couple slides here for you. Just want to take a look. Let's see. Sorry. Make sure I've got that. So I was born and raised in Meridian, and I currently work next door to the Central Valley Plaza proposed site. I wanted to talk about some potential legal zoning questions that I've come across looking at this application, and because of them, I'm currently opposed to the proposal as it's currently presented, but I think if there were some changes made and the proper processes followed, that this proposal could go through. And the question I came across in looking at the future land use map, obviously there's the 3 designations that were talked about before, the MDR, MUI, and MUC. The 2 bottom ones with the commercial area being the mixed uses parts of the development. But when I looked at the future land use map designation, which according to the comprehensive plan, it says that the future land use map dictates the types of zoning that are envisioned for the particular pieces of land. The zonings that show up for mixed use interchange in this area are the LO and ME, and the zoning that shows up for the a mixed use community are the zonings highlighted there. And what I've noticed is conspicuously absent from this is the zoning that Brighton is requesting here, the CG zoning. It kind of looks like they're trying to sneak in a comprehensive plan change through the back door of this application, and apparently nobody's flagged this legal issue. The future land use map designations, obviously in the comprehensive plan, state that according to Idaho code, the zoning districts should be in accordance with the adopted plans. And the city website states in their public information that requesting land use changes in the city of Meridian is a big deal because it impacts, of course, everybody and can change a lot of things. And I'm not here saying that you can't change the future land use map in order to accommodate the development, but nowhere in the project application, nowhere in the public notices have I seen anything about this application attempting to alter the land use map. It's just been presented as a simple annexation and zoning application, and kind of looks like they're trying to get that in without getting the public scrutiny that might come with having a comprehensive plan or future land use map change. So I would say that until the legal and proper notice has been given to the public that this is actually looking at a future land use map change, that's what is actually happening here, that it should be held up until that has happened.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, any questions?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Borton.
I'm going to ask legal question, and then you a question. And I'll come back.
Mr. Neri.
The question raised is can this application proceed as presented without the corresponding comp plan amendment to go along with it in light of the existing comp plan designation and the requested zoning, I think is the question. Can legally proceed? So we can answer that one. And the question to you, sir, while he's chewing on that, is if this had the comp plan application that you believe needs to go with it before us today, would you be supportive of the application?
I think that if it was properly amended and the public was able to know that a amendment was happening and could comment on it, then that would put it in a different light.
And Madam Mayor, that's the million-dollar question back to you. I was just curious if, assuming that the requisite application that you believe had to come along with it was here today, would you then be supportive of the application?
I would not have these questions on that. Yeah. So.
Mr. Neri, I guess there was a question to you.
Certainly. Madam Mayor, members of the council, Councilman Porton. So in reading the staff report, the staff's analysis is that it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Obviously, ultimately, that's the council's call on whether you agree with that analysis, but that is contained within your staff report is a variety of areas where the mixed use, and I think there's also a comment in here, I think on this slide that's in front of you that talks about emergency services and such, so whether or not that hospital being there qualifies, and that is, again, a decision of the council. But your staff report from the planning department feels it is consistent. There is a request for annexation. The zoning that's being requested is requested to be done through a development agreement. So it is really your decision of whether or not you agree with the staff's comment, but there is quite a bit of analysis on why they believe it is consistent.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, next is Michelle Duro.
Again, I apologize for the confusion. So I'll try to be really quick.
Michelle, if you'll state your name and address.
Michelle Duro, 3044 West Sugarberry Drive, Eagle, Idaho, 83616. In 2013, Maritime Group signed an agreement with, ITD signed an agreement with Maritime Group to, how do I do this? I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to turn this slide. To change the construction of the road because of the Highway 16 that was being built. And anyway, the agreement we sent to you, it stated that certain qualifications had to be met, and there was a deadline of 2016. It had to attain complete construction and ACHD approval by that time. A payment was made in the amount of $463,000 for the purchase of the land and then administrative settlement, in addition to $356,000 for the construction of the road. And it was accordingly built in November of 2016. ACHD also showed that they believed it to be a permanent road and a public road by putting a green sign for North Pollard Lane, and as opposed to a blue sign which indicates private road. It's well understood that public roads are not uprooted without compelling public reasons. In addition, Brighton requested that we move the original right-of-way to a different location because they did think it was going to be permanent. Otherwise, why would they have moved it? We rezoned 3 different times to match up with Brighton's changes. So they thought it was going to be permanent. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done that. On June 15, 2016, they sent us an email referring to it as a permanent road, and it confirmed that it would be deeded to HCHD. And November 2016, they said that when we complained, they said it should work well with our proposed business park. At the recent ACHD hearing, there was some misinformation that they claimed that it was always, in the rebuttal, that it was always intended to be a temporary road. And because we discovered after that that the paperwork was misfiled with ITD, and ACHD confirmed that it is in the correct location. The road was built in the correct location. The applicant proposes that because of paperwork, that it's not a public error, but paperwork errors do not dilute their obligation. Can I say anything else or no?
Hey, you can summarize your comments.
Okay, my comment is, with receiving over $750,000 of taxpayer dollars, that should be considered a permanent road, and we relied on good faith. We request that it's not approved until the proposal plan that leaves the current road in its location, or that they treat us like the other neighbors and come up with a compromise. We are the only neighbor who has not been worked with very well. We've had only about 2 meetings, and there's been no written information that's been guaranteed to us, just like the other neighbors. So
Thank
that
you,
is our
Michelle.
request. Thank you.
Council, any questions for Michelle?
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Kavner. Michelle?
Michelle?
If we can ask a question.
Your last comment kind of stuck with me. So I know that there was some pretty significant direction from the Planning and Zoning Commission for the applicant to work with you, but your comment made it sound like that, in your opinion, that didn't happen.
We have been trying to contact them since December. Recently, after the first Planning and Zoning Commission, BVA, reached out to us, and we did have a very pleasant meeting. Last Tuesday, we sent them an email and said, if they would give us something in writing before tonight, we would recommend this project, and we would not oppose it. And they did have it come and meet with us yesterday and said they wanted to give us something, but they haven't given us something. And because of that, they have given stuff to all the other neighbors and have worked, as they said, for 5 to 7 years with them. We've been working with them for about a month. We've been trying to, but that isn't the same treatment, in my opinion. And it is a public road by all aspects.
Madam Mayor, an additional question. Sorry, Michelle, you'll have it for me. When you say you want something,
Well, we want the public road to remain that we've paid over $90,000 in rezoning 3 times because they kept moving it because it was supposed to be a permanent road. Thank you.
So what do you mean by rezoning?
The original easement where our it was originally, the road was connected to Chinden. The ACHD required them to move the road for safety,
Because it was too close to highways.
yeah, too close to Highway 16. And then, so we originally zoned for where it was set in 2013. In 2016, after our zoning, Brighton requested to move the easement down because they thought it was going to be a permanent road. And so then that was approved. We weren't involved at all in that process. We would have liked to be. And so then we rezoned so we could align with the new alignment. And then shortly after when they built it, I think there was something what they wanted to remove, they might have been required to move it for power poles. Again, nobody talked with us about it. And then we went through a third zoning process and totaling over the $90,000 and several months of delay on our project and rent cost as we were waiting to be able to start our project. That alone, and plus the comments and email, and plus the contracts, which were misrepresented to the ACHD commissioners, are all evidence to us that in good faith that road should remain. And as David presented, there is a way to do it where it could work for everyone.
So you were at the Ada County Highway District meeting?
The recent one.
And because they really are the ones that set the road infrastructure and those kind of things, and they've made a decision on this application.
It was a decision made based on a rebuttal. We had, again, only 10 minutes, and the applicant had more than the time at the beginning and even in the rebuttal, more than the allotted time. And in the rebuttal, we weren't allowed to respond, but they threw out a new argument that this was always intended to be a temporary road and that there was no legal basis for ACHD to deny them the right to move it. And in which case, I can understand the commissioners thinking, well, and they even said that we have no legal basis to prevent this, and we like Brighton. And we don't have anything against them, too. We think they're a great company. We think they build great things. We hope that they succeed tremendously with this project. But we would like to not have a hospital right in front of our grand entrance that we paid a lot of money and time to develop.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, we have Keith McGregor.
Good evening.
Good evening. Sorry for talking from the audience. Keith McGregor, I work at 6675 North Pollard Lane. I'm in charge of a lot of the truck traffic and in outbound logistics, among a lot of other things I do for Franklin Sensors. I'm here to discuss some of the negative impacts of the proposed project. So one of them is it's going to increase potential for injuries due to a lot of left-hand turns being added, being property damage and accidents, lives, and stuff like that. We've added a significant amount of pedestrian traffic right next to where they're trying to flow our traffic. As you'll notice on Levi Lane, they're going to send us up and then across right next to all these senior citizens, and it's well known that walking is kind of the main form of exercise for the elderly. Future Meridian Research Park development, we plan on having around 500 employees, plus a few service trucks coming in and out, all making left-hand turns. Now they have to make 2 extra left-hand turns instead of 1, and both of those left-hand turns come into a T intersection, having to check both ways before you turn instead of just one, and ahead of you is adding a lot of danger. It's actually well known that, or even a fact according to NHTSA, our National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, that 22.2% of left-hand turns, of pre-crash events happen at left-hand turns versus 1.2% happening at right-hand turns. Are we following me? I talk really fast.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Okay.
We're following.
It's also well known that access is the #1 factor to determining land value. According to Ryan, who's an experienced appraiser and owner of Zach Ryan Appraisal Services, that's his quote. So obviously a preferred entrance is a nice direct access off the main road. It's attractive, and we knew we wouldn't quite have that, but we did always expect to have direct access. We can see some examples of the pane here for land value. Your first piece of property, obviously that's closest and has the most access, is going to be almost a third. You lose almost a third in value going down to something buried back in a complex. This is a Francis Place Professional Park. Another example, and probably a better example really, is this light industrial complex. You can see now at the very bottom of the screen, you have to turn at least twice to get into this last piece of property. And the property value there is $1.95 per square foot versus properties on the other side where they have direct access of being $3 a square foot. So we believe this could drop our property value by almost a third, just because of the way it's designed and how it's being laid out versus what it could be. Again, another example, you'll see the more buried property, which doesn't get good direct access, is a third less in value of the other properties around it due to the way that the roads are working. So we also talked to a local commercial real estate expert, and he specifically said that this negatively affects the value of Meridian Research Park's property. So in conclusion, we just ask that either we get something in writing from Brighton that we can agree to as far as an easement that keeps our value in place and is safe for everybody, or if we can leave the road in the current position, that would be agreeable to us as well. Just in case you're wondering, we get about 3 to 4 trucks a day currently at Franklin Sensors. We make the world's best stud finders. That's what we're doing now. So we get some big semis and some UPS delivery trucks too.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Council, any questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
Madam Mayor, next is Karen Garcia.
Karen Garcia, 6675 North Pollard Lane. Mayor DeWeerd, council member, it's a pleasure to be here. I think Michelle did a nice job kind of explaining one of the big concerns that we have is we feel that as you're making decisions based on recommendation from planning and zoning and from ACHD, that in those meetings there were some misrepresentations. And because many of those misrepresentations came during the rebuttal, we had no chance to speak to them. So, I would like to speak to a couple of those really quickly so that you are aware of them. One of the myths that they have said is in the reasons why their project should move forward and why it's necessary is that Franklin Sensors can't build anymore, that we didn't go through the needed processes. That is not the case. That we did go through the planning and zoning, and that we do have the utilities needed. Not only to build one additional, we are approved for one additional building, and we have water, and we also have sewer capable for 5 times more sewer capacity than we're currently using. One of the things they also say is that the road must be torn up, that whether we were to keep it up, they've always said this is a temporary road. This isn't the case because an existing road is 24 feet. And the future road would require a 36-foot wide, so you can easily put those utilities in there for future use. Also, they have said that really this is an advantage for us, as the property, the Waverton would come directly to the center of our development. If you look here, you can see that if you come up from Levi Lane, that is this road here, and come over on Waverton, that this access is really only accessing this top little portion, and we are, in fact, our main building is down here. So there is a very small portion that is, the majority is, south, and is requiring quite a lot of backtrack. The big issue was that they also said that we didn't have wide drive aisles. I think you can see here, that we do have very large drive aisles, and that there were some council members that took that as a very important point, but you can see here maybe it was because of the scale that they assumed that it wasn't large, but it is quite large. And I think, and just in summarizing to what Michelle was saying, I think it's very important that we say that Brighton communicated to ACHD, ITD, Franklin, that it was a permanent road. Also, let's skip down to point 5, that we went through planning and zoning 3 times. If it was always intended to be a temporary road, then why were they so adamant that they move the road? If that was the assumption, because we went through planning and zoning, again, let me rephrase that. The pain was we went through it 3 times. And if it was known that it was permanent, then why did we have to go through that? So in summary, I will also mention that they did not post their sign-in time.
Okay, if you can summarize,
Yes.
please.
You can look at this date that they did not post it in time, and then conclusion. We ask that you do not approve it because, until Brighton or BVA proposes a plan that leaves the road in its current location, or that Franklin Sensors receives approval and assigned equivalent access. So we have had discussions, but we want
Okay.
something in writing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
So can I ask for clarification? You went through planning and zoning with the city, or is this you're a county sub, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And when we have county subs that develop before we have annexed out there, these are the kind of things that happen. We don't get alignment, and this is one of the things that we like. Development that happens from the inside out, and when you have something outside, it does provide these problems of how things align once the annexation gets there. That the county approved this without the city process. And I think that's one of the reasons why we like to see more of the annexation line, so that these kind of things are well-planned in advance, and each parcel, as they start to come on, align with that. So I hear your frustration, and I don't know how the road process goes, because we do have an Ada County Highway District and a countywide road process. But I do know that is one of the reasons that we do like that in to out, so we avoid these kind of things.
Okay.
Thank you, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so those are the ones that signed up. We're a couple of minutes before 8, which is our hard stop. And so, council, at this point, it looks like we need to continue this application. With our apologies, we did not know we wouldn't have that quorum to continue. We appreciate everyone's time that has come down to provide testimony.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
you typically, I know that we're up against a hard stop, but I know that we just took the people on the list, but I know typically after that you ask if there's anybody else that's in the
I
pipeline.
do, but we don't have time. And I will at that time, those that haven't yielded their time to a speaker or that hasn't already provided testimony, we would at this time offer that opportunity. But because we do have a hard stop, I don't have that opportunity. Mr. Neri, I guess Ms. Milam did ask a question that I would like to ask. Even though we would not have the opportunity to vote, Ms. Milam could listen to the tape. We know a decision can't be made tonight, but additional testimony to be taken, with the council having the opportunity to listen to the testimony before action from council.
Madam Mayor, I mean, yes, I think you can do that. I think the concern is, again, that the record getting a little jumbled by kind of cutting, by having people testify. The people that are going to make the decision aren't here. We're going to rely on a tape later, or reviewing transcripts. I don't know how a court would review that. I would be concerned that the district court would be concerned about really the clarity of the hearing being broken up like that, and really requiring one of the voting members to have to re-listen to it. to assure they've heard it. I'm a little concerned about it. I'm not saying you couldn't do it. I'm just a little concerned on how we pose that to a district court if we were asked that question.
Okay, again, our apologies for the situation. You have 20 more minutes? Okay, we have a little bit more time. We just fought. So with that said, we have gone through those that have signed up to testify. Is there anyone else who would like to provide testimony? Denise? Good evening. If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
I'm waiting for her to get it up real quick. Okay. All right. My name is Denise Lefevre, 6706 North Salvia Way. As far as this project goes, I went back through and looked, and one thing I noticed is that they advertised this project way before the application went in. You know, they're really excited about it. They've been on TV several different times, and the players that are involved in it are Ball, Venture Quest, Brighton Corporation, and HCH Healthcare, which is a $3.87 billion company. And all along, they've been advertising 90,000 square feet of space. What you'll see here is right out on their site, this is what they're advertising to the public and the investors right here. And in this here, this is the schematic that they're advertising to their investors for this site. In addition, these are the elevations within their site, which are the same elevations that are in our package. So that's the elevations that are present. This is the square feet that they're advertising here, and 86,000 is just a square feet based on the calculation plus an estimate for the first floor. So the intent is to have a building over 90,000 square feet. Once again, here's your office plaza. That's the same elevation that is in the package that we have from the staff that's advertised on their site. That's 45,000 plus square feet. In addition, you have a office flex, which is 36,000 square feet. Right here, the phase-in plan, you have a 95,000 square foot building, a 48,000 square foot building, a 50,000 square foot building. And right here, this, and the staff report says this is a high-intensity use. These highlighted areas represent the areas that it doesn't meet. It doesn't go back through and meet the zoning requirement. This is actually a comprehensive plan change from what I'm seeing. In addition, you have a road right here that says you have to meet access requirements. Right here, there's a question on September 15 if the road existed. It says right here that you can't go from residential to commercial. This used to be residential and now it's commercial. You can't increase intensities. Well, right now, prior was residential. The flume isn't commercial. You also have a point that's less than a half a mile. It's close, it's 0.45 miles from center to center, but it's not a half a mile. Here's what the road used to look like, right here, shows residential. But my biggest concern I have of all is the shift in burden. We're allowing a development to kick up the intensity of the use of this project and shift the burdens back over to taxpayers. Fire service, page 2. There's an aerial devices required. Impact fees don't cover that. Why aren't we asking the developer to cover that? No impact fees collected on state highways. The intensity use of this proposed development is above the flume envisioned, will impact and access traffic. This will further contribute to congestion and shift the burden to taxpayers to fix the problem in the future. There's other
Denise,
amenities.
can you
I'm wrapping it up.
Okay.
There are other things that they can do to lessen the impact of the intensity and density on this. And the water in here, there's no determination on pressure or water flow. You know, those kind of decisions in North Meridian, it's important with water. Those decisions need to be made. And last but not least, police office, they're asking for a substation benefit, a substation within the area, and they're going to lease it back to us, which is a benefit to the hospital because a lot of emergency rooms have police officers in it, and yet we're going to be paying we're going to be paying for that.
Thank you.
I think we need to be asking the developer if they want to have this intensity and density to kick it up a notch and help pay for some of this.
Thank you.
That's it.
Is there any further testimony? Okay. Yes, ma'am. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, thank you. My name is Lucretia Wilson, and I work for Franklin Sensors. And I just wanted to point out, like they explained, that we've went up in front of the board for 3 times trying to get this road all taken care of. But we have trucks that have to come through for our deliveries. And the way they want to move our road, it's going to take our trucks to where it's going to have to go by the hospital and the residents that they're going to put in for assisted living, which is usually elderly people. Then our diesel trucks are going to have to flow that way and try to turn those big diesels left and go around all of those. And at the same time, you know, if they're out there for their walks, it's not that easy to stop. You know, if somebody accidentally goes out into the road, you know, where there's no stop signs and stuff, to stop a diesel. I mean, everybody knows you can't stop a diesel on a dime like you can in cars. And so the road that we have now, that they've fought to get that road, is a straight shot for our trucks, so that they just come off of Chinden and they have this small curve, and then they go straight into our parking for the deliveries. And like Karen explained, our parking is a big area. I mean, these diesels pull up into the parking and then they back down in there for our deliveries. And plus, we have all of our employees that go to work, and it's going to make us have to, I know it's just inconvenient for us, but we're all going to have to go a complete different route that's going to take us longer to get to work. And the same thing, you're going to have all of the different residents from them wanting to have the street go out by that assisted living in the hospital. So I just wanted to explain, and for people to think about how hard it's going to be for those diesel trucks to make those turns safely with everything in the way.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Any further testimony? Okay, would the applicant like to comment?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, David Turnbull. Glad to say our new address is 2929 West Navigator in Meridian. Just a little history, and it's going to be difficult to go point by point on every one of these issues, but I think, Madam Mayor, you kind of pointed out the crux of my, what I would like to say. This is what happens when somebody jumps out in advance with no public services, no planning, no traffic studies, none of that, and plops down a commercial development in an unincorporated zone. So a little history, we purchased this property back in about 2007, I believe, and we entered and immediately thereafter into a deep and long recession. So we became farmers and aspiring developers at that point. We have talked to the city at length about what they want to see out in this area. As you know, we've been active in the North Meridian area for a number of years. We initiated and funded the North Meridian Area Plan. Part of the key points of that plan was creating jobs where our people live and creating backage roads or collector roads backing and paralleling Chinden. Those are the kind of things we're trying to accomplish here. ITD came along, and with the Highway 16 extension, they needed to acquire right away from us for the interchange at that intersection, and also some alternative access to the other property owners because they were going to cut off Pollard Lane from access to Chinden. We specifically negotiated in that agreement because we had no development plan, we hadn't done any studies, we didn't do any traffic studies, that we needed to be able to relocate that road if and at the time when we had a development plan in place. That's specifically in the ITD contract. We had to build the road that's in there now because at a time certain, ITD said we have to cut off Pollard and we were going to have to build a road there, and so that's what they funded. That was because they were cutting off access to those properties. We were in long discussions with the people on north of us. They've been delightful to work with. I even had at least 2 meetings with Mr. Duro before they started any development plans, pointing out that this is going to be a problem. Access is going to be a problem. I offered to trade him properties for something east of Levi Lane so we wouldn't run into these issues. I offered to trade him for property somewhere else that was already serviced with services. He didn't want to consider that, and that's his right. That's fine. But it shouldn't tie us into something that we are handicapped because they jumped out there in advance, did a development in the county, and didn't do all of the things that we're doing, like traffic studies and everything that we have to go through. If we have time, I can let Tom Peterson address the comment that we only met with them 2 times. I know that's not true. Tom has been in constant communication with them. But every time he offers something, they want something more, and every time they do that, they come in and oppose us. I mean, this has got to be a 2-way street here. We are bringing annexation path to them. We are providing services to them. They have a sign out on their property right now that says septic and well. You know, that's their services. The road that we did build is a 2-lane, 24-foot road. It would have to be torn up to install water, gas, and all those utilities. It just would. So even if we did that, we didn't have to provide another alternative access to them. We put in a plan to provide access to that while we build a 5-lane arterial standard road on Levi and a commercial collector road on Waverton. They will have superior access to what they have now. The access that's there now just simply doesn't work from a traffic study standpoint. The idea that we misled ACHD commissioners, my goodness, we have been with ACHD staff and ITD staff, and they can tell you, and Franklin Sensors has been in there making their point with the same staff members. They vetted us thoroughly and they approved this relocation. So I think from ITD standpoint and ACHD standpoint, we've created a superior traffic pattern. You know, I can tell you that we do have a date stamp posting on the property. I don't know what Denise was getting into with all our square footage figures. The first building, the medical office building, is a 90,000 square foot building. That's what she seems to be referring to as us representing that that's all we were going to build. That's never been the plan. And in Planning and Zoning Commission, the commissioner specifically asked the fire chief, not fire chief, but one of the fire deputies, if they could service this property, and they said, yes, we can service this property. So all of those arguments have been addressed. You know, we've done the same thing with your staff as we've done with ACHD and ITD staff. We've thoroughly vetted this project. When we did first come in, they said you need to flip this around so that the hospital, the higher intensity component of this, is away from the residential. With a helipad, they wanted that away from the residential. They said that was what would fit with the comprehensive plan. So, you know, this, again, I just think the county set a bad precedence on this. If we invest the kind of money we do to build business parks where people can come in and get a building permit, you know, and then you allow, the county or the city allows somebody to go out in a cornfield, buy a piece of property on the cheap, put in a septic and a well, and call that a development, and then wait for somebody else to bring in the services. I think that's what causes the problems. Like I said, we have tried to work with them. Tom Peterson continues to try to work with them, and he's had numerous conversations and numerous meetings. I don't know if I've covered all of the bullet points here that have been raised, but I would certainly be glad to stand for any questions if I didn't.
Madam Mayor,
Ms. Milo.
I think it was Denise brought up something about an aerial or fire or something. Do you know anything about that, or?
Aerial fire truck, they
Oh,
pay.
the fire
Correct.
They
Are you gonna buy
pay,
us a fire truck?
they pay impact. I mean, those are all figured into our impact fees.
Correct, yeah, Madam Mayor and City Council, that references to the, because it's a multi-story building, there will be an aerial device required for, that will be needed for that development. And at this point, the closest aerial device, our goal is 12 minutes. And right now, the closest one is 15 minutes away. Right, and that was Chief Neumeier that you were talking to, the fire chief. And he had mentioned that, now I just totally lost my train of thought. Because these buildings are sprinklered, we do have extra time. So that extra 3 minutes would not be a problem, and we can service this project.
Perfect, thank you. Never mind.
Mr. Kavner.
Mr. Trimble, appreciate your comments and thoughts. You've addressed my questions. I did have one that didn't come up, I think because it has more to do with the layout of your project. I just want to make sure that I'm correct when I'm looking at your map that's here in front of us all. The emergency portion of this medical facility is going to be accessed off of Levi. It goes into that kind of roundabout. Is that,
Correct.
am I seeing that as accurate?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. No other questions.
Any other questions from council? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So council, any questions, follow-up questions for staff, the applicant, or any of those that testified?
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. May I, there's one additional outstanding item. Per the specific use standards, hospitals providing emergency care are required to have direct access onto an arterial street. The access proposed will be via Collector Street from State Highway 2026, from which access is prohibited, except at the half mile between section line roads. The City Council should make a determination on that in their motion if they feel it meets the intent of this requirement. If so, it should be memorialized in the development agreement, please.
Thank you, Sonia.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Borton.
Sonia, the question goes back to you. We heard comments from John at the start about the specific design of this collector does serve and function in a way that an arterial would in these circumstances. So in light of that specific design and application here, do you believe that it meets the intent of that requirement?
Staff feels it could meet the intent of that requirement, yes, but council should be the decision-making body on that.
Certainly. Okay.
Madam Mayor, I don't know.
Mr. Kavner.
I hesitate to close the public hearing because that's proven to be problematic in the past. So I'll share some thoughts. This was a challenging application for me on paper. It's hard to visualize, and I don't live in that northern part of town, and I try really, really hard to not be in a place seeking out things so I don't make our city attorney mad about looking at areas. And so this was one that really having good testimony from the public and from the applicant and from staff was really, really helpful to me. I sympathize with the residents. You move out there, you're running your business out there. I think it's amazing to be able to get all these employees to come out and speak in favor of the company. I work in public policy, and I can't get my coworkers to come testify at city council things for me, so I appreciate your passion. When you look at the outstanding issues, and what I heard a lot was not so much about the project, was more about the access piece, and I am not pretty enough to play an ACHD commissioner, and so I typically yield to our traffic engineers and our traffic experts. And in the staff report, it speaks very, very clearly and very, very directly about the highway district's decision about where Pollard should be. So it's hard for me to question that based on the sufficient information being provided by them. I did have some questions about the access with the collector piece off of Levi. I think staff and the applicant have satisfied that. So I'm one that's supportive of this application. I think it's a good project for North Meridian. I think it meets what is going to be a growing demand for services out in that area, and I'm really looking forward to having it in Meridian.
Any other comment? I agree with Mr. Kavner. Sometimes as you comment, we might find additional need for information from staff or the applicant or any of those that provided testimony. So any further comment?
Madam Mayor,
Ms. Mylum?
I really concur with Councilman Cavanagh tonight. Reading through this staff report, there just seemed to be so many unanswered issues. But I feel that the applicant pretty much answered most of them with their opening remarks. Obviously your street, Pollard, it's a big issue, and it's a big issue for you guys, and it stinks. This is a really bad situation. But unfortunately, we need to take the advice of the experts in that area and to try to change what the road jurisdiction does by saying we know better. I don't feel that would be an accurate or an adequate thing to do. It would be like them trying to change what we do on a daily basis. With life safety or something else. So, unfortunately, I'm sorry to you guys. I wish we could keep your road, but the law just doesn't allow for that. So I'm pretty much in favor of this application. I feel like most of the questions have been answered as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Ms. Lowell Roberts?
Madam Mayor, I concur with the two previous council. This was an application with a whole lot of information and a lot to chew on, and I think it's been great, the process that we've gone through. I concur that we need to follow the process, and it's too bad that with such a great business, we kind of got things out of whack with something going in the county before the city met that area, and I certainly feel for all of you, but agree that we need to let the experts do what they do, and that is roads. That is not our purview, but I concur that I think this is a good project, and appreciate the fact that it will keep some traffic off of Shinden with the purpose that you've dealt with the roads. And so I am in support of this project as it's worked its way through the process.
Any further comment? No? If there's no further comment, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Kavner?
Move we close the public hearing on item 11D, Pollard subdivision H-2019-0021.
Second.
A motion and a second to close the public hearing on item 11D. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All ayes.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Kavner?
Move we approve 11D, Pollard subdivision H-2019-0021, include all staff, applicant, and public testimony with specific approval that the Collector Street from State Highway 2026 be a sufficient connection to a medical facility.
hospital facility.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any needed clarity from staff? Okay. Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Mylum?
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts?
Aye.
Councilmember Cavanagh?
Aye.
Councilmember Borton?
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried. Thank you for joining us. Item 12A is under Department Reports. We have our Public Works Department, Kyle Raddick, here to present a budget amendment for well 20B rehab.
Madam Mayor, council members, this item is a budget amendment in the amount of $208,190 for well 20B rehabilitation. In October of last year, routine testing identified some water quality issues that required investigation. So the well was taken offline, and since that time, assessment activities have identified a number of actions that are necessary to rehabilitate this well and put it back into service. We typically budget each year for well assessments where the removal of the pump and cammering, looking at the well components, any routine type of maintenance, pump rebuild type stuff can be paid for. However, when well 20B was pumping facility was pulled, we got a significant surprise. There was an extremely corrosive environment in there. All the low carbon steel components of the well were corroding, and they, quite frankly, just need to be replaced. The pumping plant needs to be replaced. The pump column needs to be replaced. So there's a significant amount of parts that are stainless steel that are going to have to go in there, and a lot of contractor work, some expensive chemicals to get that thing cleaned up. And we really need that well to be back online this summer because it's one of our higher quality wells. We want to maintain our water quality level of service this summer. So with that, we're asking council to approve this budget amendment for $208,190, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Kyle. Council, any questions? Oh, thank you.
Mayor.
Ms. Little Roberts.
Madam Mayor, seeing no questions, I move that we approve the budget amendment for the well cleanup for the amount of $208,190.
I have a motion and a second to approve item 12A for the budget amendment as presented. Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Burnt?
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts?
Aye.
Councilmember Cavanagh?
Aye.
Councilmember Borton?
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried. Item 13A is ordinance 19-1826. Mr. Clerk, will you please read this by title?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance 19-1826, an ordinance H 2019-0119, ICOM parking expansion for annexation of a parcel of land being APN S111-841-7268 and the adjacent rights-of-way of South Locust Grove and East Central Drive, located in the northeast 1/4 of the southeast 1/4 of Section 28, Township 3 North, Range 1 East, Boise, Meridian, Ada County, Idaho, as described in Attachment A, and annexing certain lands and territories situated in Ada County, Idaho, and adjacent and contiguous to the corporate limits of the City of Meridian as requested by the City of Meridian, establishing and determining the land use zoning classification of 2.91 acres of land from R6 to CG, General Retail and Service Commercial Zoning District, in the Meridian City Code, providing that copies of this ordinance shall be filed with the Ada County Assessor, the Ada County Recorder, and the Idaho State Tax Commission as required by law, and providing for a summary of the ordinance and providing for a waiver of the reading rules and providing an effective date.
Thank you. You've heard this read by title. Is there anyone would like to hear it read in its entirety? Okay, council, do I have a motion?
Madam Mayor.
Ms. Little Roberts.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance 19-1826 with suspension of rules.
I have a motion and a second to approve item 13A. Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Burnt?
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts?
Aye.
Councilmember Cavanagh?
Aye.
Councilmember Borton?
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried. Item 13B is the first reading of 3 for ordinance 19-1827. Mr. Clerk, will you please read this by title?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance 19-1827, an ordinance to amend the municipal code of the City of Meridian, County of Ada, State of Idaho, amending Title 10, Chapter 7, Section 12E2, Meridian City Code, known as the Meridian Impact Fee Ordinance Fee Schedule, to provide for an amendment to the Police, Fire, and Parks and Recreation Impact Fee Schedules and providing an effective date.
Thank you so much. We will have the second reading on our next council agenda. Council, any items under 14? With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. What did you move?
Adjourn the meeting.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All ayes.